off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hot snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. Fastfreshseafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your neighbor, your host, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you here in our Sunshine State. Man, did we take apart the Uniparty in the first hour, if you're listening on radio or subsequent podcasts. My goodness. Demolish that Shakespearean play. Because the truth just can't compete with lies, don't compete with the truth. And we see clearly the truth more and more, despite all the confusion and noise around us. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Oakley Transport. OakleyTransport.com is their website. And it's so important that we have the best drivers in the world step up to make sure that our distribution system stays smooth and going great. And that means we have to have the best drivers in the world to keep America fed, to keep our grocery stores stocked. We don't want to have communism where we have empty store shelves because of people, rich brats who want to do social experiments on their neighbors by using the state to force people to have distribution that benefits some kind of theory. We need to have freedom. And that's why it's important for folks who love freedom, who love hard work, and want to get a career that'll be a fantastic and rewarding experience, especially if you love driving. Some people really love the open road. It's a passionate thing. It's a thing that is full of beauty going across America. You see all the different beautiful landscapes. And so if you're a CDLA licensed driver, you want to go to OakleyTransport.com, tell them A Neighbor's Choice sent you, and let them know that you're ready to take on a very rewarding career and be on the front line of keeping your neighbors fed. And we had the story of Dave and Wally, who are drivers at Oakley Transport, and they saved someone in a fiery crash. They got out of the car while they're driving, and with moments to spare, they got the people out and saved two people's lives before the flames engulfed the vehicle. That's the kind of caliber of folks that we need to protect our food distribution system. So if you're one of those folks, go to OakleyTransport.com and sign up. Let them know you're ready to become a driver, ready to serve your neighbor, keep America fed. And that's always a great thing to do the hard work that's necessary. And now it's a great time because it's Thursday, which means it's time for our Science and You segment. That's where we talk about science. You see, the problem is politics. The problem is groupthink. The problem is faith and sacred cows. But the solution is rolling up our sleeves and innovating, thinking for ourselves and working for ourselves so that we can create the world we want and render the people who are stuck in fear and low resolution ideas, we render their stuff obsolete just because we innovate our way to where we need to go. And so we talk about science news, and we do it with our physicist friend, our chief science advisor, Dr. Yu. How you doing, Dr. Yu?
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm doing very good. Thank you.
I know you're in parts unknown, so we're not going to talk about where you are, but you are hard at work on the front lines of science, as always, and we're excited for that.
Yes.
Let's look at some of the news here real quick. We have a story that says new Hubble data explains missing dark matter. This is a story That's in ScienceDaily.com. Now, you've talked about dark matter on the program before, and you're not very impressed with the concept. But for those who are just tuning in and are not as familiar, does this Hubble data give us insight into the reality of dark matter, or does it provide something else, perhaps?
You can actually provide some evidence. Say the dark matter can be removed, does not even exist. So it's a new evidence.
So it's evidence that dark matter does exist.
You see, the commonality is without the dark matter, the current observation of galaxies, cluster of galaxies, the motion, the rotational motion, they cannot exist because the gravitational force is not strong enough to hold the galaxy like a rotational galaxy together. Whenever you have a rotation, you create a concentrical, the centrifugal force, right? Try to fly
Centrifugal
away.
force.
So you have to have enough centrifugal force to, you create a centrifugal force, which has to be balanced by gravitational force, holding together. However, gravitational force is too weak, we know, but since we observe that the galaxy still formation still operating, so we assume those states that have some kind of missing matter that's called dark matter. Some matter is there, but we cannot see it. So that's why normally we should say, in order for universe to operate as it is, we need the dark matter. However, this Hubble observation find out that somehow there's one galaxy is about 45 million light years away from us. Somehow we found that they do not have a dark matter effect.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, well, without the dark matter, how could that happen, right? So that observation revealed for the first time, actually, the neighboring gravitational wave, so we call it, and kind of interact with this galaxy, the one we observe. And during that interaction, it can tear apart of the galaxy. We said, it's a missing dark matter. And tear them apart. During that process, we said, the dark matter is removed. So it does not have to exist in this case.
So you're saying dark matter is an ad hoc addition to a problem that can be answered in a more simple way, right?
That's correct. Basically, I would say, why sometimes we say that dark matter has to exist, and the time, like this case, we say, we don't need the dark matter because they're actually tearing apart. We consider it by neighboring galaxies the gravitational force. But my expectation is the dark matter, the so-called dark matter, we does not even need it. The reason we're missing the gravitational force is because we mistaken the force holding the galaxy together. That's a magnetic force. It's not a gravitational force. So we're mistaking a magnetic force holding galaxies together for this non-existing gravitational force. Because of the misconception, so we thought that in order to have a gravitational force holding them together, we need extra matter. But in this case, they demonstrated. They have found evidence. They said, in this case, we don't have a dark matter, and the universe is still operating. So what that means is another evidence say we do not understand the force holding galaxies together. It is a magnetic force. It's not gravitational force. And the magnetic force can be many, many times or even billion times stronger than gravitational force. So if we changing the gravitational force equation using magnetic force, so we do not meet the matter.
Very interesting. Another story in Science Daily a hint of new physics and polarized radiation from the early universe. This was in the Kavli Institute for the Physics and Mathematics of the Universe. Astronomers developed a new method to calibrate detectors to the light from dust in our galaxy, thereby describing a new physics with 99.2% accuracy that may show parity, symmetry, breaking. So what does this mean for folks at home? What can we take away from this story? Anything interesting?
Yes, this is a very interesting article. If you talk about, under the current modern physical theory, we have two pillars. One is quantum mechanics, governing the matter is very small, the world is small. And another pillar is called, general relativity. So that's the two pillars. They're governing the magnetic world. It's a bigger world. So that's a heavenly body part. But however, now this discovery is challenging the quantum theory. In quantum theory, in order for quantum theory, our work, we need what's called a parity symmetry principle. So we need some kind of basic principle to make sure quantum mechanics theory is hold together to working. But in this case, they discovered there's a new data from a Planck, spacecraft data, and the new method to measure polarization angle of the light, and we find out it breaks. It has a parity symmetry breaking, basically breaking the parity symmetry law in quantum mechanics. Whenever you're breaking the fundamental law in a theory, what that means? That means the theory is in problem. So that means we have it's a hint of a new physics exists. So this measurement tells us is another evidence to say the current quantum mechanics has a fundamental flaw. So the law of parity symmetry, by this new measurement, we said, no, it's breaking. It's actually not working. So there is not this kind of parity symmetry. So what that means, that's another evidence that quantum mechanics is not correct. It's not fundamental law. We need something go beyond standard model of quantum mechanics, standard model of physics. So that means that means we need a new physics.
We need a new physics. Dr. Yu, we have a commenter online named Pranav. He asked, do you think social sciences are still in their infancy and not advanced like natural sciences?
I wouldn't say that. It's common. It's intuitive. We think about natural science is much more advanced than social science and other type of science. That's naturally what we're thinking that way. But you know what? If you look at it through deeper fundamental level, at the smallest particle, electron and the proton, we don't even know what the electron is. And neither we don't understand what the proton is. So, and of course, atoms built on the combination of electron and the neutron and the protons. Of course, we don't even truly understand what an atom is. In this sense, natural science still have a long way to be totally understandable. So I would agree with your audience. Say social science has a problem, but I would say in the natural science we still have a problem. So that's why we have so many things. When you study physics, you find that the more you learn about quantum mechanics and the relativity, the more you feel like you don't understand anything more. Mm-hmm. So, which is very similar to social science in some extent.
Now here's another story real quick. This is in allaboutcircuits.com. Researchers create low-power method to control magnetism with voltage. New research has unveiled that it's possible, the article says, to switch states of magnetism between on and off in a new class of easy-to-fabricate materials containing nitrogen. A joint research effort between University of Alabama, Georgetown, and others has shown that it's possible to switch magnetism states between on and off in a new type of material that contains nitrogen by applying voltage, by connecting it to a battery. In doing so, it's theoretically possible to generate or completely remove all magnetic features, leading to the possibility of being able to tune the magnetic strength of the material to specific applications. What do you think of that, Dr. Yu?
Oh, I think this is a fantastic application of magnetism. I know this article finds something is new, so that's why they posted it. How can we switch magnetism on and off and through voltage, right? We apply voltage to certain materials. You know, that's the key. That's the link between the voltage we're talking about, the electricity. So this is a mystery. This is a missing link between the magnetism and the electricity. So let me explain. When you apply voltage, it means you apply electricity. When you have electricity, it's nothing more. It's oscillating magnetism, magnetic field. So electricity is interaction with is through magnetic field. So that's why we know whenever you have electricity, you have a simultaneous magnetic field, right? So that's why when you have a voltage, and it means you apply electricity, of course it will create a magnetic field. And this magnetic field can either enhancing existing magnetic field, or that's called a coherent construction, or you can deconstruct cancellation of magnetic field. So that means you can turn magnetic field on and off, but through apply electrical voltage.
Well, very good.
They are basically the same thing of topology.
Very interesting. Dr. Yu, I always appreciate your groundbreaking analysis of the science news of our time. I like people who are Galileos. I like people who think differently, and you certainly do, and you make physics better, easier to understand with your work, and it's always great having you on our program. So thank you again for Science and You. And we'll be back after these short messages.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Here's one thing you can scratch off your to-do list without going anywhere, without any out-of-pocket cost to you, and even get up to $150 cash back. Get that crack in your windshield fixed by calling Auto Glass America. They'll come to you, and with comprehensive insurance coverage, there's no cost to you. Call Auto Glass America now and fix that pane in the glass with premium glass and a lifetime warranty. Call 813-96-GLASS, 813-96-GLASS. Auto Glass America.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Our Neighbor's Choice returns. We just did our Science and You segment, and now we're going to turn to the world of politics for a moment and take a look at this clip by a store owner. It's in the middle of a newscast, and it is just an indicative story of kind of where we're at, the temperature in our country today. And this was in WWMT, the local channel. And we're going to go to this clip now and play a little bit of this.
Morning. We're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out.
Okay, this is a different clip, but this is something we can talk about real quick here on the, we're about to go to break again for news, but I want to, I was wrong clip, but we're going to talk about this too. So that was a clip of showing the ballots being messed with and one of the counting places that are a suspect in this election. And the reason why I played that clip is because I want to show you that there's real evidence. You see this guy putting the table up and telling people to leave, and then he's picking ballots out and moving around doing things. And the television tells you, you know, that old saying, the revolution will not be televised. Well, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. The revolutionary exposure of the corrupt, deep, tricky behaviors involved in our electoral processes. If it doesn't fit their narrative for the establishment, they're not going to televise it. You're going to have to go to places outside of TV and TV mindset to get those coverage. So we're going to continue to cover that and see where that leads. And we'll be back with more. Up next, Jeff Deist of the Mises Institute will join us.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. Yeah. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical.
critical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going on.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHPO.
California businesses which aren't closed or limiting capacity now could very well be in the coming days. Governor Gavin Newsom announcing new stay-at-home orders.
The effects of Thanksgiving, they have not yet been felt. They will be felt in a number of weeks.
The rules which pertain to areas with 15% or fewer intensive care beds will be in effect for at least 3 weeks. In Delaware, a new mask mandate paired with a stay-at-home order banning residents from gathering indoors with anyone not in their household. Vice President Pence attending a COVID-19 distribution roundtable in Nashville today.
We expect to be shipping COVID-19 vaccines within 24 hours of approval, and we expect vaccines to begin to be administered to Americans in that first group within 24 hours of that.
The government will be working with companies in the private sector like CVS and FedEx to transport and administer the doses once that vaccine is available. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
A Neighbor's Choice is live. I'm David Gornosky, your host, and we're happy to have a friend of the program, someone who is a frequent commentator on these airwaves across FM and AM and podcast platforms. He's the president of the Mises Institute, Jeff Deist. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, David. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, as they used to say before all this stuff. But I wanted to read this question from a listener online, to just throw it to you, because I don't know the answer. It's, if there is evidence of voter fraud in these areas that are being disputed, what happens next? No way Biden is removed, this person says. Magic marker.
Well, it's very, very difficult because you know, you and I have talked about politics a lot, and politics is really about perception more than it is facts. And unfortunately, neither of us have the ability to really know what happened on the ground in Michigan or Georgia or any of these other states, whether or not there were phony mail-in ballots, whether or not there were people who shouldn't have been voting, whether or not there was intimidation by poll workers. I mean, the whole thing, if you've been following at all, Rudy Giuliani's testimony, or not testimony, but his legal maneuverings on this. It really is very complicated, and I suspect that almost every election, national election anyway, has a significant degree of fraud, maybe a few percent, maybe 5%, who knows. But the problem is that the American people perceive that Joe Biden won this election. And the perception almost becomes the truth in politics, because politics isn't like markets with profit and loss. It isn't any sort of meritocracy. It isn't the real world in many ways. It's a make-up world. So Biden was smart. He had his legal team out there ready to go. They immediately created the impression, using their friends in the media, that he had won. He immediately started holding press conferences, and then he set up that phony, non-existent office of the president-elect, which is just it's like two little kids creating a clubhouse somewhere. It's completely made up. He started talking about who would be Treasury Secretary, all kinds of things like that, and the media went along with it. And so they turned the attention away from Trump, and in the interim, Trump has increasingly looked like a desperate, older fool, tweeting out from time to time, "I won the election," that sort of thing. And so it's very, very tough to overcome that perception. I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah, it's a strange world, because it's like the president is no longer televised. It's like, okay, you're done. Your storyline's over. And they don't televise anything he says hardly at all. It's very bizarre. It's very strange.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's kind of a weird.
I was listening to talk radio the other morning on the way into work, and one of the guests on the Hugh Hewitt show was talking about what this guest termed polling suppression or suppressive polling. And I think the media went along with this narrative that Biden was ahead by 10 or 15 or 18 points in a lot of these states was almost a ploy designed to demoralize Trump voters and keep them away from the polls in the first place, to say he's so far behind, and also to make it easier for the public to accept a Biden victory, especially if it was close or just a few points either way, which it clearly was. So polling has even become part of the state media complex, I'm afraid. And so it really is astonishing, given everything that was aligned against Trump. He got more votes than last time. He increased his votes in the Black and Hispanic communities. And I think, he survived an impeachment attempt. He survived 4 years of this phony Russiagate narrative. And it's a remarkable story. Now, do I think Trump actually won? I don't know. I suspect he may have, but I certainly can't know. But more importantly, I think the American public accepts this. And let's not forget, there have been votes in the past where there was probably fraud involved. 1960, when Richard Nixon ran against John F. Kennedy, the political machine in Chicago helped deliver that county in Illinois, Cook County in Illinois, to Kennedy at the last minute. As a matter of fact, one of the political bosses there called Kennedy that afternoon and said, "Don't worry, we're going to take care of this." And the Cook County votes, which appear to have been fraudulent and manufactured, of course, back then there was no internet or 24-hour media, but those votes were enough to swing the state of Illinois to Kennedy and to give Kennedy an electoral victory against Nixon in what was a very close election. So this isn't unprecedented. It isn't brand new. It isn't shocking. And unfortunately, it's the kind of thing we have to expect when so much of the media class, so much of the political class flat out hates what I guess we can call Trump America.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but I don't think we're going to be able to go back to the pre-Trump era of politics. So that's the big question that folks like you and I, who spend our time trying to understand, culture and politics and economics and try to make sense of where things are going for folks who want to have these conversations. It's a wild world, isn't it, Jeff? Because it's kind of, where do we go from here? I don't think Jeb Bush and that wing of the Republican Party will really have a lot of that kind of ideology is ever going to really play in a deep way again. But the question is, you've got basically four parties that have emerged. You've got the Bernie Sanders AOC department, and then you've got the neo-lib establishment with Biden. And then you've got the Bush, Rubio, Nikki Haley style Republican establishment, and then you've got this Trump populist flank. And you got four parties here in America now, and they all have their own alliances. But it'll be interesting to see where this all plays. Do you have any feelings on this?
Well, my first feeling is I don't want to go back to the old pre-Trump politics. Yeah. I like these better, don't you? Yeah. Because I think we should be honest, and I think we should call a spade, and if America shouldn't be ruled by euphemisms, it shouldn't be ruled by lying to ourselves. We shouldn't pretend that there is a comedy or a nationhood where there is none. And I think anything good, anything positive comes from an honest assessment of where we are, first and foremost, and that requires some pain. Okay, that probably requires pain. But the fourth of the four parties you named, I think, is where the action is. And I think what we have to understand is the old GOP is dead. It was already at death's door, and Donald Trump came along and kneecapped him, took out the Bush family for good and all. And there's no coalition there. There's nothing that conservatives really mean anymore. They can't stand for limited government or the Constitution. They blew that out of the water irrevocably with George W. Bush. They can't. They're not the party of foreign policy circumspection. They're the policy of neoconservative adventurism in the Middle East, making the world safe for democracy. So they're terrible on spending, and they're terrible on war. And so what are they any good for? Trump comes along, and he's got a lot of rough edges, and he lays out a case for working people and working America. And boy, we're sure going to need that after 2020 when everyone's been locked down. So I think people focus too much on maybe Trump the man as opposed to his voters and what they really wanted. And I've heard Lou Rockwell say this, that Jeffersonians were maybe better than Jefferson. And I think, in a sense, Trumpists are better than Trump. He's done some things and did some things and failed to do some things. Because remember, how you assess a president is as much by what they don't do as what they do. But nonetheless, I don't think he really deserved re-election from, let's say, the perspective of David Gronowski and Jeff. But we don't deserve Biden. And what I mean by that is we, the American people, don't deserve this, what I would consider cipher Joe Biden and his very nasty left-wing lieutenant, Kamala Harris.
Right. And they don't have any interest in doing things that are pro-human, which is what I'm concerned about, right? You know, we have these folks that are represented by these sayings. You keep hearing this stuff. We're going to be great reset, great reset, great reset. Every world leader in this little script, great reset. And then they say, we're going to build back better, build back better, build back. These, they're so sterile. There's no life. There's nothing there. It's like a robot, you know? And that's the battle between what we've got in the future, between people who do not care about human life and people who do, who say, no, I don't want mass incarceration. I don't want endless wars. I don't want corporate welfare. I don't want you telling me what I can eat and what I can do and where I can go and how I can sit and when I can come out to play with my friends. We don't want it. And so you have a battle between those who love life and love human life, and they love human persons, versus those who are sterile in their calculation, and they don't care about human life. Human life is expendable, and that's ultimately what Biden and Harris represent, is that a consensus and that a neoliberal establishment.
Well, they represent a continuation of the 20th century Western order. And keep in mind, David, they're not asking, they're telling. What they represent is a long line of politicians and a worldview that doesn't really care what we want, meaning you and me. It intends to impose a form of political globalism, which has one kind of soft social democratic model for the whole world, or at least the whole West. I'm not sure Asia and Africa are going to go along with this. So, they spent the whole 20th century telling us what's right for us, telling us that these things are inevitable. Of course, 100 years ago, schools were telling us that socialism was inevitable and scientific, and they still believe that. And so, really, the great irony here is they have hid all of this under this cover of democracy. They've been talking about democracy since Woodrow Wilson was supposed to make the world safe for democracy. They've been talking about it for a century, David, and they've been practicing anything but. What they are is an oligarchy. George W. Bush and Hillary Clinton have a hell of a lot more in common than you or I do with, let's say, George W. Bush. And that's really what you need to understand to see this whole thing clearly.
Right. And the number one thing that we have to do is not allow them to control our emotions. I tell people it's not just enough that you don't accept what the groupthink lemming media tells you to say and to believe, but it's also important that even if you disagree, that you don't let them control your emotional state, right, Jeff? Because that's where 99% of the battle is, isn't it? If you are always bitter and sad and you feel, besieged, or you feel paranoid, or you feel like, man, it's all over. These people they just tell me what to do and there's no hope. When you let them get into your head, that's where all of the culture is lost, isn't it? It's kind of, we have to reclaim our mental sovereignty in some sense, don't you think?
Yes, I absolutely do think that. And I think that demoralization is part and parcel of the what I would call the progressive push. They want you demoralized. They want you to think you have no power. They want you to believe that there's some sort of deterministic arc to history, and that if that arc doesn't, go your way, you should just sort of accept it. And none of that is true at all. We're not determinists. We're not fatalists. We wake up in the morning and everything has to be produced anew. And I think we have to understand that the populist wave, which we've seen across Europe and in the U.S., it has its upsides and downsides to it, but it has definitely rattled them, and that's a good thing, and we ought to be part of that, pushing that.
We're speaking with Jeff Deist, and I know a lot of you guys are fans of Jeff Deist. He's the president of Mises.org, Mises Institute, which is a leading group that explores free markets and how a free society works. We're going to take a quick break. I'm looking at some of the comments. We'll try to get to some of them when we return with Jeff Deist. Ralph says, I love Jeff Deist. How do you like that, Jeff? A lot of love out there for you.
Somebody needs to.
Very good. We'll be back in just a moment. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187, Equal Housing Lender.
If you're not facing your mortgage issues, this can be the most terrifying sound in the world. It means you've fallen behind. It means hope is dwindling. It means you're another call closer to losing your home to foreclosure. Fortunately, there's hope. If you need real help and guidance, call 1-888-995-HOPE. That's 1-888-995-4673. Because nothing is worse than doing nothing. A public service announcement brought to you by NeighborWorks, the ad counselor in this station.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Hello, David Gronowski here, your host. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We're covering the news and the headlines of this week with the president of Mises.org, MISES.org, Jeff Deist. And Jeff, I have a clip here I want to play for you. This is an example of the tone and the energy going on around the country. It's a broadcast of a local news outlet, and they're on the site talking about shutting down some restaurant, and then the owner appears in the middle of the broadcast and comes on and engages the reporter. So let's see if we can get that clip.
The details on why the judge said no.
Here on this cafe.
Javarius, is everything okay?
Okay. Our government leaders have abandoned me.
Are you the owner?
$4 trillion of stimulus money. They gave it to who? Special interest groups and campaign donors. I'm Dave Morse. I own the place.
So what's going on?
What's going on? You know what's going on.
Tell me. You tell me.
Hey, we got a government that has taken the stimulus money. They gave it to special campaign donors. They gave it to special interests. They abandoned me, and they have put me in a position where I have to fight back. Okay?
So do you feel that this is the right thing to do?
Absolutely. I feel everybody needs to stand up. Hey, listen, there was enough money to give every family in this country $20,000 to go home for 2 months. They chose to give it to special interests and campaign donors, the Kennedy Space Center, and they abandoned us. So you could have given me money. I'd gladly walk away for 60 days and let this virus settle down. I'm not going to do it alone. Okay?
Are you going to continue to violate the state's orders and stay open?
State order. This isn't an order. This is a conspiracy. This is a tyranny.
What do you want to tell other restaurant owners who...
Wake up. Stand up. This is America. Be free. I got patriots coming out supporting me.
Jeff Deist, what do you think of that? That's a restaurant owner that interrupts the broadcast. We interrupt this broadcast, right?
Yeah, I love this guy because for the media types, and don't think that your local media is necessarily all that much better than these national media. I mean, that's just the training grounds for it. But for the media, this is almost a set piece. This is almost make-believe, like we go show a restaurant that's closed, where the owner is fighting back against the closure and trying to have a restaurant service, as this guy clearly is. But for the gentleman who comes out and interrupts, it's the real world, and he makes an excellent point. And this reminds me of the bailouts we had during the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, where huge companies like AIG were given billions and billions of dollars to recapitalize themselves, in effect. Well, with the CARES Act, which was something Congress passed back in March or April of 2020, which was over $2 billion, all that money's gone too. So why didn't little guys like him, why didn't just every American family get $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever it might have been? And where is that money now? I mean, that's an excellent question. So once again, we have this top-down approach where, the money doesn't go directly into the bank accounts of the poorest or most Main Street Americans at all. And so this guy might have gotten a little $1,200 check back then. His restaurant may have gotten one of those PPP loans, if you remember those, but that money's gone. And so now what's he supposed to do? Because it's 8 or 9 months later and his own state governor is still telling him that he can't serve food and sell food. Well, that's what he does for a living. So, what's he supposed to do? The TV camera guy and the TV hostess are still employed, and the governor's still employed, but this guy's sitting there, and he's not getting any check from any government. And as a business owner, as a non-employee, he might not even be getting an unemployment check. So I love his point that there's no order when the newscaster says, "Are you going to continue to follow this order?" He says, "What order?" And that's a damn good question. You'd have to examine state by state, but there hasn't been any legislature in any state in the country that's actually passed a bill or revised an old statute to allow all of this. This is almost entirely governors and mayors and county commissioners acting unilaterally, and I would suspect oftentimes in violation of their own state constitutions and clearly in violation of the federal Constitution. So, this is the kind of thing you're going to increasingly see because the powers that be want us to think that everything is going to be okay now that Biden's in there. And this is absurd. We shut down about 75% of the engine of the United States for almost 9 months. You don't just turn it back on. You have to oil it. You have to do all kinds of things. So there's going to be lasting collateral damage and ripple effect from all this. And I hate to say it, but you're going to see an awful lot of guys like this gentleman who are really angry.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see, the media has said, oh, they're too bleeding heart, but they act so confused. Like, why are you defying the order? It's like, what do you do? Who are you? Are you the prince's guards? Are you the king's, support? What do you want? This guy's starving. You're you're fed because you're an essential business. You're a very essential business. I think the media is the most essential of all in the establishment's mind. They have a very great job to play, which is to try to convince people to have their lives screwed over for their own benefit or something, And so it's a really interesting thing to see the tone deafness there,
Right, and that's because there's two Americas right now, and that chasm is deepening. And sometimes people shift from one America to the other, but for the most part, the reporter gentleman was incredulous. And as you said, why is he acting as a de facto state agent or state representative? Why is he saying, like, why are you ignoring this order? It's not his place to support the order or oppose the order, or it's his place to report the news. So the first thing he should have done when they stuck their TV van in front of that restaurant went and knocked on the door and asked to speak to the owner and say, we've had a report that you're operating. As you know, there is the government or our state has imposed an order prohibiting this. Can you give us your story? That's what a newsman would do. But this isn't news. This is a phony dog and pony show. And, it's just every once in a while, it's just great to see something like this because, the rawness, the realness of this restaurant owner gentleman really cuts through and makes for great TV. And I hope it went out live. I hope they didn't pull that from whatever station it was.
Yeah, I think it certainly reached a bigger audience online at the very least. But I want to ask you, switch gears just for a moment for a broader perspective. A listener online said, can you ask Jeff if the Mises Institute will start a branch in India? India requires libertarian views. The legacy of Nehru's Fabianism has kept the great country still underdeveloped. Is there any talk of that in the conversations you've heard?
India is just incredible. I mean, the amount of potential there. And a few years ago, their president Modi executed a huge currency devaluation, which really hurt the middle class there. It would be like lopping a couple zeros off David Gornowski's bank account. And the public, by and large, accepted it because they have a view of Modi as sort of the father of the nation, and that he was doing this to protect the currency, and ultimately it was in the country's own good, even if it was painful in the short term. So they're a little more, I guess, credulous or trusting of their government officials there, their leaders, than we are, because here our media, at least with Trump, did nothing but go after him for 4 years. So I wish India well. But I think they have a huge cultural and mindset problem when it comes to their economics.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's always interesting to see how this hunger for liberty, though, crosses all over bounds all over the world. We get a lot of international listeners, and it's exciting to see the power of these ideas, really capture the hearts and minds of people. And like you say all the time, Jeff, you can't have liberty without virtue. You can't have liberty without a culture that values things beyond just making money. And that's so important to keep all those things in mind as we defend these truths with our life. So thank you so much for joining us again, Jeff.
Absolutely, Dave.
It's always a pleasure. And I want folks to check out Jeff's work. Follow him at Jeff Deist on Twitter, where you get a great, unique, independent perspective. If you're kind of tired of the same old left-right, frame, you want something that's not going to be the same predictable slop, you want to follow Jeff at Jeff Deist on Twitter, or visit his organization's website, Mises.org. That's MISES.org. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.